I don't want to do reality because reality never runs smooth.
Nick Nolte never learned how to play nicely. For 5 decades, Hollywood's most unpredictable force has bulldozed through Tinseltown with zero patience for phonies, prima donnas, or anyone who mistakes fame for talent.
The only place I could be an extrovert is on the stage or in films, and then that's when I feel whole.
That weathered face and gravelly voice didn't just happen overnight. They're battle scars from countless wars with co-stars who couldn't match his intensity. While other actors schmooze at parties and kiss ass for roles, Nolte has always chosen a different path. Raw honesty over political correctness, brutal truth over comfortable lies, real commitment over surface-level performance.
Ass isn't something you buy. Look at you, you got a $500 suit on, you're still a lowlife.
Yeah, but I look good.
That approach made him one of cinema's greatest actors, but it also made him plenty of enemies along the way. The 3-time Oscar nominee has never been shy about calling out colleagues who he believes are coasting on looks, connections, or lucky breaks. From comedy stars who couldn't handle serious drama to leading men who confused ego with talent, Nolte has watched Hollywood's standards slip while staying silent. Until now. Some clashed with his old-school work ethic. Others couldn't handle his unfiltered opinions about their craft. And a few simply represented everything Nolte despises about modern celebrity culture. These are the 6 actors who pushed Nick Nolte past his breaking point and why their relationships turned toxic. 6. Sean Penn. 2 wild animals circling the same territory. That's how one director described watching Nick Nolte and Sean Penn on a movie set.
It's just a terrible feeling to walk away from something that you didn't do with your heart.
Both men built careers on raw intensity and refusing to compromise their vision. But when you put 2 alpha wolves in the same pack, somebody's going to get bitten. The rivalry started in the early 80s when both actors were carving out reputations as Hollywood's most serious performers. Penn was the young hotshot from Malibu who talked about art and politics between takes. Nolte was the seasoned veteran who believed actions spoke louder than speeches. Penn's constant political lectures drove Nolte crazy. The guy never shuts up about causes and movements, Nolte reportedly told a makeup artist. We're here to make movies, not change the world. While Penn held press conferences about social justice, Nolte focused purely on the craft of acting. The competition became personal when they started going after the same demanding roles. Both wanted to be seen as the most dedicated performer in Hollywood. Penn would research characters for months. Nolte would disappear completely into personalities. Each tried to out-method the other. What made it worse was how similar they actually were. Both had explosive tempers, both demanded perfection, both treated lesser actors with obvious disdain. But Penn wrapped his intensity in intellectual justification, while Nolte kept things simple and direct. They never worked together directly, and insiders say that was intentional. 2 forces of nature smart enough to avoid the inevitable collision. 5. Mel Gibson. For years, Nick Nolte respected Mel Gibson as a fellow warrior in the acting trenches.
He can find where his limitations are, find emotionally who he is, find out how to get up off the floor after a loss.
Both men understood pain. Both had battled personal demons. Both brought real darkness to their performances. But respect turned to disgust when Gibson's private ugliness started spilling into public view. The breaking point came during Gibson's series of explosive controversies in the mid-2000s. The anti-Semitic rants, the recorded phone calls, the public meltdowns that revealed a side of Gibson that made Nolte's own struggles look tame by comparison. Nolte had spent decades fighting his own battles with alcohol and anger, but he'd never turned that pain outward onto innocent people. Gibson's hatred and bile toward others crossed a line that Nolte couldn't forgive. The man's got poison in his soul, Nolte allegedly told a close friend. I've been to dark places, but I never took it out on whole groups of people. What particularly galled Nolte was how Gibson tried to play victim after each controversy, seeking sympathy instead of taking real responsibility. Gibson's attempts to rebuild his image through religious themes and comeback stories felt calculated to Nolte. Real redemption doesn't come with press campaigns, Nolte reportedly said. It comes from shutting up and doing better. The former mutual respect died completely when Nolte realized that Gibson's on-screen intensity wasn't method acting. It was barely controlled rage looking for targets. That kind of darkness, Nolte believed, had no place in professional filmmaking. 4. Warren Beatty. In the golden age of leading men, Nick Nolte represented gritty reality, while Warren Beatty embodied polished perfection.
It would create a mild intoxication, but the problem was the degree from mild intoxication.
Their opposing styles created an unspoken rivalry that simmered for decades beneath Hollywood's glittering surface. Beatty had everything Nolte couldn't stand about the movie business: the perfect hair, the smooth charm, the ability to seduce both audiences and studio executives with equal ease. Where Nolte earned every role through blood and sweat, Beatty seemed to glide effortlessly from one prestigious project to another. The jealousy ran deeper than just career success. Beatty's legendary romantic conquests and powerful Hollywood connections made him untouchable in ways that Nolte's raw talent never could. Studio heads loved Beatty because he made their jobs easier. Handsome, reliable, bankable. "He's a movie star playing an actor," Nolte allegedly grumbled to a friend. All surface, no substance. The contrast became more painful when both men aged. Beatty maintained his distinguished silver fox appeal, while Nolte's face showed every hard-lived year. What really burned Nolte was Beatty's producing power. While Nolte fought directors and studios for creative control, Beatty simply bought it. His ability to finance and shape his own projects represented a level of Hollywood mastery that Nolte could never achieve. The final insult came when Beatty received Lifetime Achievement Awards, while Nolte's more challenging performances were often overlooked. "Recognition without risk," Nolte reportedly called it. "Getting rewarded for playing it safe while the rest of us bleed for our art." 3. Robert Downey Jr. When both Nick Nolte and Robert Downey Jr. were making headlines for all the wrong reasons in the 90s,
I can't find anything as complex and interesting to do, but I need it in a story.
the media loved comparing Hollywood's two most notorious bad boys. But Nolte saw the comparison as an insult to everything he'd worked for. Where Nolte's troubles came from working-class desperation and genuine artistic torment, Downey's seemed to stem from privileged boredom. The son of an underground filmmaker, Downey had connections and safety nets that Nolte never enjoyed. When Downey spiraled, Hollywood waited patiently for his return. When Nolte stumbled, he had to claw his way back alone. The different treatment drove Nolte crazy. "Downey gets sympathy, I get lectures," Nolte reportedly complained to his agent. Same problems, different bank accounts. The media portrayed Downey as a tragic genius, whose addiction was part of his artistic process. Nolte was simply labeled a difficult drunk. What made it worse was watching Downey's miraculous comeback with Iron Man. Suddenly, the same studios that had blacklisted him were throwing hundreds of millions at Marvel movies. Downey transformed from Hollywood pariah to franchise king almost overnight. Nolte watched from the sidelines as his former partner in crime became one of the industry's highest-paid stars. The irony wasn't lost on him. Downey's recovery coincided perfectly with a character that let him play a charming narcissist with daddy issues. "He's getting rich playing himself," Nolte allegedly muttered during one of Downey's triumphant comeback interviews. The real kicker was seeing Downey mentor other troubled actors while positioning himself as Hollywood's redemption success story, a role Nolte felt he'd earned through much harder battles. 2. Barbra Streisand. When Nick Nolte signed on for The Prince of Tides, he thought he was getting the chance to work with a legendary performer. Instead, he found himself trapped in Barbra Streisand's personal kingdom, where every creative decision flowed through her royal approval.
I had one blue sock, one red sock. They thought I needed direction, you know. I have to thank Barbra Streisand.
Streisand wasn't just starring in the film. She was directing, producing, and micromanaging every frame. For an actor who thrived on creative freedom and spontaneous discovery, working under Streisand's iron control felt like artistic suffocation. "The woman wants to direct my breathing," Nolte allegedly complained to a friend after particularly grueling shooting days. "She's got opinions about how I should blink." Streisand's perfectionist approach meant endless retakes for the smallest details, turning simple scenes into marathon endurance tests. What drove Nolte to the breaking point was Streisand's habit of rewriting scenes to favor her own character. Emotional moments that should have belonged to his psychiatrist role mysteriously shifted focus back to her suffering wife. Plot developments that gave him meaningful screen time somehow got cut or altered. "She's making a 2-hour commercial for herself," Nolte reportedly told his agent. "I'm just an expensive background decoration." The final blow came during awards season when Streisand campaigned heavily for directing recognition, while barely mentioning her leading man's powerhouse performance. Despite delivering one of his finest acting jobs, Nolte watched Streisand collect all the major nominations, while his work was largely ignored. The message was clear. In Streisand's productions, there was only room for one star to shine, and it wasn't going to be her leading man. 1. Eddie Murphy. The culture clash was immediate and brutal. When Nick Nolte walked onto the 48 Hours set expecting to work with a fellow actor,
Trying to take the audience into life, into what really life is, or am I just going to stay in the fringes?
he found himself paired with what he saw as a stand-up comedian playing dress-up in a cop movie. Murphy's rapid-fire improvisation and constant joking around drove the serious-minded Nolte to distraction. While Nolte prepared for each scene with methodical intensity, Murphy treated every take like a chance to try new material. The generational gap felt like a canyon. "This kid thinks acting is just talking fast and making faces," Nolte allegedly told the director. "Where's the craft? Where's the discipline?" Murphy's natural charisma and street-smart energy were already making him the breakout star, something that didn't sit well with the veteran actor who'd paid his dues for years. The racial dynamics made everything more complicated. Nolte came from an era where leading men looked and sounded a certain way. Murphy represented a seismic shift in Hollywood that left traditional actors scrambling to stay relevant. What really stung was watching Murphy's meteoric rise after their film together. Saturday Night Live led to Beverly Hills Cop, which led to superstardom and massive paychecks. Meanwhile, Nolte continued grinding through challenging dramatic roles for a fraction of Murphy's earnings. "He's getting $20 million for making funny voices," Nolte reportedly complained to a friend. "I'm getting $2 million for actual acting." The sequel reunion only made things worse, with Murphy's increased star power shifting the dynamic completely. Nolte went from co-lead to supporting players in what should have been an equal partnership. Nick Nolte never apologized for his standards or softened his opinions to make friends. In Hollywood's game of politics and pretense, he chose brutal honesty over comfortable lies. Which feud hit closest to home? Drop your thoughts below and hit subscribe for more raw Hollywood truths.